So may we know your name, please?
I'm Kwesi.
Kwesi?
Yeah.
Just Kwesi?
That's how people call me, so I like it like that. But if you want my full name, I'm Kwesi Judah.
Kwesi Judah.
Yeah. I'm 66. Six. Yes. All the sixes.
You look too young for that.
Clean living, man. Clean conscience. Well, I became a vegetarian at the age of 28, and then I became a vegan at the age of about 40. I love Africa. I can't imagine not being in Africa. Africa has allowed me to be myself. I grew up in England, and when the Midlands, Nottingham. And when I returned to Ghana, it was like a weight had been lifted off my head and my heart. I could walk with a light step, I could think clearly, I felt at peace within myself. And I've been through a lot of negative experience since I came back, but I've never for one day regretted coming back. I came back in 87.
1987?
Yes, when New Orleans was appealing for people to come and help with the development effort.
Yeah. And you have been here for a while?
Yeah, a lot of people expressed surprise because many of our people who went to London and made something and then came back have asked me, Kwesi, how do you stand it? Because I can't take it. And they go back again to England. They say they're going back home. Meanwhile, they were born in Ghana, brought up in Ghana, and then went to the UK or wherever to seek their fortune. Having come back home to try to help the situation, they're made to feel unwelcome, or they're exploited to such a degree that they feel that they can't stay in their own country. And it's appalling, but it's the truth. Me, I'm a dedicated Pan-Africanist. So being home is above everything, and I can't in good conscience not address the situation that my people are in. The situation is appalling, and I have to try to bring some enlightenment where I can, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm a journalist, so I do what I can from that point of view, but also I'm a bit of an artist, so I mix with the creative community. I encourage people, I interact with them. And on the Pan-African scene, I interact with people and try to give them a sense of unity and let them know what's really needed for Pan-Africanism to succeed. Because really and truly, it's about the people working together. And we need assistance from our governments. It's not the other way around. The people are already Pan-Africanists. We just need the impediments moved out of the way. For instance, when you appeal for people to come back home, and they come and are treated like strangers, and are made to go through procedures which, say for instance, white people have to go through, the same procedures that you as an African coming back to Africa, you have to go through the same procedure. That is so totally wrong that I don't know where to start. It's so obviously wrong. And in fact, I know that Senegal and Nigeria, and I believe South Africa, if a diasporan comes to Africa and says they want to repatriate, they're given immediate citizenship. That's not the case with Ghana. So really, what are we saying?
But not long ago, about 150 people were given citizenship.
That's tokenism, please. We need a proper policy, as I said, like South Africa or Nigeria or Senegal, where people who seriously want to repatriate are given their citizenship. They're coming home to Africa. They're not foreigners who are immigrating into the country. They're sons of the soil coming home. So why would you give a select few rather than everybody who wants to come? If people say that because you have dual nationality, you might represent a security problem, my answer to that is okay. For those who want dual nationality, you can have some conditions. But for those who want to come home and reclaim their African identity and just get rid of whatever passport they had before, those people should be able to go to any country in Africa and settle. And there's not going to be a flood of people doing that. So anybody who brings that as an excuse is not being realistic. Those who would do that are very, very sincere people who have something to offer Africa because they love Africa and Africans. When Sheikh Abu Tuwete came back from Nigeria in '98, he sought me out. Sheikh Abu Tuwete, he was the publisher of High Street Journal, which was the first dedicated business paper in Ghana, which set the standard for all those that followed. So I was a member of the original team because he brought me in, first of all as a writer, but when I saw the level of English that was being brought in with the stories, I started correcting them. So from that point, Sheikh said, look, Kwesi, we have enough writers. You just concentrate on getting the presentation right for us and do the sub-editing.
Copy editing?
Yes. So that's how I got into that job. And from there, that's what I've been doing ever since. But of course, I've been writing articles here and there. I started with Kwesi Yankah with the Uhuru magazine of blessed memory. I was writing for them. From there, unfortunately, somebody put their hands into the coffers and the magazine collapsed. So it was a very sad situation, honestly. A trusted member of staff collapsed the company. So from there, I became writer and associate editor for Ghanaian Society, which is like, excuse me, an entertainment magazine. Which featured entertainment in Ghana, what's happening on the social scene, the cultural scene, new developments like the tourism industry and so on. So as I said, I was the associate editor and chief writer. But from there, I took a break and went into art in a serious manner. I started doing sculpture. And I actually moved to Cape Coast. The sculpture I was doing was somewhat avant-garde. I had an exhibition at the Artists Alliance during the Panafest, and people were impressed with my work. In fact, one American professor bought my whole set of work and took it away to America. But unfortunately after that, I had some personal issues which didn't allow me to continue with that. So it was after that Sheikh came to beg me to come and work with them because he knew of my work. So from there is when I went back into writing and journalism, or in fact at that time I went into the copy editing. So from that time, that's what I've been doing from '98 until now. So at that stage, I went from High Street Journal to Business Week after High Street Journal folded. Unfortunately, the publisher died, Sheikh Abu Tuwete. He died at a very young age and the paper collapsed. So from there, members of staff sort of continued with Business Week, and I took over the role of that one as well, until also mismanagement caused that one to also go under. And from there I went to Business and Financial Times, and I'm still there.
Which year was this? When you joined the
When I joined Business and Financial Times, that was around 2007-8.
Now, after 30 years in Ghana, what is your assessment
Of
the economic situation of this country?
The economic situation is an unnecessary disaster. Given the resources that we have and the amount of talent that we have, Ghana should be one of the top countries in the world. Unfortunately, the level of corruption and nepotism that we have is so high that it's difficult to make real progress.
But the view out there about climate is a very positive one.
That shows the state of Africa, because in truth, Ghana is one of the better countries in Africa, and we in Ghana know the problems that we are having. So imagine the rest of Africa. We are in a dire situation. If you look at what the French are doing to the Francophone African countries, it's still direct colonialism. They're taking their money every year and banking it and making profit from it and lending it back to Africans at interest on interest charges. This is, what can you say about that? And that's now. The non-Francophone countries loot the coffers of the nations and send it straight to the white man. So how are we supposed to progress with these sort of conditions? The level of superstition. In the West, most people use religion as for moral education, to show people how to behave properly. Here in Africa, we try to achieve our aspirations through superstition, through magic. And it's just shocking in this day and age to see how prevalent that kind of mindset is. And the level of people who have such a mindset is frightening. The positives are that with the coming of the internet, people are able to access information for themselves. So at least on an educational level, people are becoming more widely exposed to the world and how it is. And they're seeing alternatives to what they've always seen as their culture, their social culture. One of the things in Ghana and Africa in general is that people are afraid to go against social norms for fear of being ostracized, because we are communal people. Once you're outside the community, you're as good as dead, so people are very afraid of that. However, in the interests of truth and betterment of our society, some of these things have to be confronted. Seriously, we can't keep being so superstitious as human beings, as adults. We can't pray when your house is on fire and you start praying for rain to put out the fire. That's madness. I'm exaggerating, but that sort of thing. The level of corruption makes things difficult all the time. Back in the days when Rawlings was trying this, also inviting diasporans to come, I had several friends who also returned from the diaspora and tried to go into business and so on. They left because everywhere they went, they were ripped off, either by people they were trying to do business with or by government agencies who were supposed to help them. There needs to be somebody, some kind of body that's there to guide these returning people and to guard them, to guide and guard them from the inequities of our system. It's not really set up for that. It needs to be something like an NGO that has the benefits of both the person coming and the country in mind to facilitate that positive interaction. Something like that needs to be set up, and it has to be independent of government. It would be relevant if it was sincere. However, I doubt that sincerity.
Why so?
What I'm picking up is that the powers that be don't really want people to repatriate.
Really?
That's not the impression they give at all. The impression they give is that they want people to come as tourists, spend their dollars on pounds and then go away and keep coming back and spending their money. They don't truly have a project in mind that would allow people to repatriate and put their whole being into building a country that they can call their own beyond the year of return. It's very targeted to people who have large amounts of financial resources. It's not something that would attract somebody with potential who would want to come and start from scratch and then use his talent and hard work to build something. No, it doesn't encourage that. It encourages people with money to come and invest. Well, we need a complete change of mindset. For instance, on the subject of Pan-Africanism, which you would think, this being Ghana, would be something that's popular. Let me give you a little anecdote. A few years ago, I remember Pastor Mensa Otabil being accused of being a Pan-Africanist. It was such a negative term in the eyes of the people who were using it, that this pastor should be espousing Pan-African unity. He does mention the need for African unity and for black people to help themselves. Now, he's been condemned for this virtuous statement. So that shows the state of mind of our people. So it begins with the society that we're in. Our people are in an appalling state of mind, generally speaking. There's a lot that needs to be changed. We need far more sincerity than what we have at the moment. Again, I say that our leaders in Africa are complicit. The only African country I know of that would take issue with a white country for abusing their citizens is Nigeria. All the other African countries turn the blind eye whenever their citizens are abused abroad. It's really a sad situation.
Not just Africans abroad, but that's going on Africans, like, for example, what was done to George Floyd, for example.
Africa, you see, if Africa is not in a position where it's respected and its people don't respect themselves, it affects black people everywhere. Africa is the motherland. Africa is the font of all our hopes and aspirations. So whatever happens in Africa affects black people everywhere. It's an obvious truth. And as long as African leaders don't respect their people, African people won't be respected anywhere in the world. To quote Peter Tosh, no matter where you come from, and let me add, no matter where you are, as long as you're a black man, you're an African.
Where did we go wrong?
A lot of it has to do with our focus and reliance on religion and so-called spirituality. Because if you're not saying Jesus or Allah, the people won't listen to you. And if that's what you're saying, you're not really offering them concrete means of progress. Our people have reached a stage where, I don't know if it's because of desperation, they've resorted to hiding reality behind superstition. I call it superstition, they call it religion. But for me, if you're looking for assistance from heaven when you should be doing things to help yourself, that's superstition to me. Yeah. People become offended when I say this, but it's the truth, and I won't stop speaking the truth. If you're using your religion to build your moral character, fine. But when you start expecting things to be done magically, my brother, you've gone astray. You need to reassess your perspective of life. George Floyd.
Floyd was killed.
It's not the first time that that's happened. In fact, it's happened several times since. So it's a normal thing with black people and police in America. But having said that, it's also as bad in other places in the diaspora. where black people are even the majority. Brazil, for instance, they face even worse brutality than in the United States. And they're 51% of the population. It's something that black people have become almost accustomed to. We've been relegated in the human race. In the human race we are last because of our historical experience. One of the things the white man did was legislate that we were 3/5 human. Let me repeat, the American government legislated that black people were 3/5 human, meaning we lost 2/5 of our humanity in the eyes of the world. And that view still persists. That's why the title Black Lives Matter has become a watchword. Because according to other people, black lives don't matter. We've become dehumanized.
All lives matter.
That's true, but the actual fact is black lives are abused more than others and has been for longer than others. Our situation is more dire than other races. And we have contributed to that by not respecting ourselves. And we still don't respect ourselves. There's a saying in Ghana that if I'm going to church and I see a white man, I can turn around and go home because I've seen God. That shows the depth of our essence at the moment. We are very, very low down in our own estimation. That's a major part of what our problem is. Yes, and let me say, people taking advantage of other people's ignorance. For instance, if you tell a pastor to tell his congregation that the Jewish people of Israel in the time of Jesus were black people, therefore Jesus would have been a black man. No pastor will say that because he'll lose his congregation. Yes, but you know, when there's blindness and ignorance, you can take advantage of people. And our pastors are chopping the people, Charlie. I think the people who need reparations are those who were taken away. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. The people work for hundreds of years without pay. You've got to pay them. They need to be paid. Who needs to benefit? I think it's very easy to identify who's the descendant of a slave and who is not. It's not difficult. So that's a non-question to me. The question is the will to do that. Of course, the white man is not going to give us anything if we don't push for it. If you're coming with a positive idea to bring affordable housing for the people, fine. You have so much scope because we have materials here which can build housing which is both decent and affordable. But if you're coming to build big business, big buildings to do hotel business and fancy apartments, that won't really work. Not for now, because we're in the building stage. If you're going to build for yourself, then it's entirely your own matter. But if you're coming with the intention of going into real estate, then you would have to be looking at providing affordable housing for the people. That one, there's money to be made, and you're also doing something that is socially very necessary. It's now that you find a couple of banks beginning to bring in the concept of mortgages for everybody. Unfortunately, the average wage earned in Ghana doesn't allow people to access mortgages, but it's early days. But the COVID-19 has come to put a spoke in the wheel, so to speak. Our economy at the moment is not what it was. And we're told by the experts that it's going to take a couple of years for COVID-19 to be brought under control and for things to start getting back to normal. So in the short term, I would say the investment climate is not too good. Even you can't travel. So it's going to take a couple of years before the economy gets back on track. If they become our next colonial masters, it's because we've allowed them to do so. The things that some Chinese are doing in Ghana is simply illegal, and they're able to get away with it because of corruption within our system, and the same in the rest of Africa. So it's not that the Chinese are coming in with force like the white man. They're coming in and actually buying what they want, and they're buying our leaders. So because of the corruption that I mentioned earlier that's holding back African progress, it's seen as being recolonized. According to a report I read, the Chinese have a policy of exporting 300 million Chinese to settle in Africa over the next maybe 20 years or so. They've started in East Africa. So we've lost North Africa to the white man. We lost East Africa to the Indians. The white man controls much of South Africa. What we need to do is to use the Chinese expertise and let them go home. How can you allow people to just come and land in your country and take it over? Look what's happening with the Galamsey. We know that the Chinese are doing it. Could we go to China and behave like that? No, because the authorities wouldn't allow it. But here, our authorities are collaborating. Which is what I said earlier, our authorities collaborate to impoverish us. It's unfortunate. There's nothing wrong with Africa except the behavior of Africans. We need to behave better towards the continent and towards ourselves. Our behavior is not acceptable. All this superstition and corruption and vanities, buying huge monumental mansions and stealing the nation's money. This is infantile. It doesn't show intelligence. All these so-called big men have small minds. And what they're doing to Africa is disgraceful. Unfortunately, everybody wants to be a big man. I'll close on that.